dreaded flag, a vengeful sea. Be careful what you say. There's always someone listening. The Dutchman tossed on the sea. I swore and the devil heard me. Now we're doomed to sail the 7 seas for eternity. So yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. A sinister grin across his face said, you'll be doomed to this place. The devil heard my oath, shame of my boast. Oh, a ghostly ship from the depths, freedom from fear is the only gift of death. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. If you cast your eyes, you'll join us like those before. We're an omen of the ocean night. When you see the flying Dutchman, it's too late for your soul. To the waters we gave now our grace. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. Yo-ho, let the ocean winds blow. The line forever we must flow. We sail through them, cursed and condemned. Yo-ho, let the ocean wind blow.
When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. Where the darkness surrounds me, shape-shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? My back feel you more. Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have could give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. Where the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk Watching you, following you, hitting on you through the night. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. Oh, your life, I was still. I've become the living dead. I own the darkness and know what beats inside of me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me.
Catching a reflection in the mirror of something standing in the corner of my room, watching me, observing me. Is it my imagination or insanity? A strange hum, a flash of light. I'm overcome, nothing but fright. Otherworldly beings taking me in the night. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Looking at my hand, there's something there. Inside of me, I'm feeling oh so scared. Confusion and nasty fear. It wasn't just a nightmare. So loud, so bright, hypnotizing me figures lost in time. I'm tortured, surrounding me tonight. I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head? Where are they taking me? Others dwelling in me. Where are they taking me? Anxiety rising. Was it just in my head? Paralyzing panic. Was it just in my head? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. What do I do? What do I do? Where are they taking me? Where are they taking me? I'm an extraterrestrial hostage tonight. I wanna run, but I can't move. I don't feel real. I wake up in my bed. Was it just in my head?
All right. Good evening, folks, and welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner. You know that already. Sorry, the getting this set up takes a while to get everybody in here, and I don't want to start talking. And then, the knock on the live stream is that we talk about all kinds of other things before we start talking about the paranormal. And that's because we need to get the people into the chat. So that way they're not behind when they show up. And on StreamYard, you can be behind, and then you can be making comments about something that happened an hour ago. And so that is the big knock on the live stream. And I apologize, but we have tried very hard to not bring up the elephant in the room that's been happening to us. And people still complain. But I say this just because it's not happening to you. You don't know what it's like, but I'm doing my hardest not to say anything. So if people have asked, where they can find, I do not have my phone. Okay, I thought I had it in my pocket. It's not in here. I have my phone in my notes. Don't know where it's at. People have asked where they can find what's going on so that we can keep it off of the show. Very simply, just go to PRT News. It's like a daily thing. Just if you go and you look, today I read something that I didn't even know, and today I don't always get. I'm not told what's going on, because they don't want to bother me with it, my family and friends, and it's like every day. So if you had to, go through this, it would be, and I don't know what's taking so long. So with this situation, but I can tell you this, I'm going to get it resolved one way or another. If I have to hire another lawyer, I will, because I'm just that's how done I am with it. But it's just, just seems like there's a lot of things just not working out, like I just got to get this done because I want these people out of my life. So here we are, about to do the show, and I cannot believe I don't know where my phone is at. Give me 1 second, folks, because I got to get my notes. Please don't go anywhere. Give me 2 minutes. Okay, so I'm back. Found it. It's on my phone. Such a busy day. Everything was just up in the air, and just felt like I needed to take a cold shower and try to get everything. So I have a few stories for you guys. We're going to get right into it. I want to get things done so that BMR, who comes on at 8 o'clock, I'm not overlapping him. Try to be respectful of my fellow YouTubers. Everybody has their things to say, whatever. Somebody sent me a message saying that I shouldn't be worrying about other people, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate your sentiment. Like I appreciate that you think we're the best and everything else, but not everybody agrees. And even if they did, I still do not approve of cutting into people's time. Last night it happened because I made a mistake. I thought that Tex was not doing a show. And so I called him. I called Tex and I said, hey, what time are you going on so I can make sure that we coordinate this? And he told me, I'm not doing a show. It's just Monica and Danielle, and they're going to be off soon. I did not know there was going to be a stand-in that BMR and Brandy were going to be on there with Monica. Or I can tell you this, I would have been off a lot sooner. I was messaged by my wife in the middle of that and saying, hey, cut the stream because they're going live. And so I cut it out because we were just talking at that point, answering questions, kind of doing a Q&A. But these were some stories that were given to me, one by a guy named Kenny and another one by a guy named Sean. And one of the stories that was given to me, it really hit home to me because I'm an animal lover, and it struck a nerve with me. And this happened in Canada, up in a lake. It's not important where. It was in Manitoba. But I'm not going to give the location of the lake, whatever. He lives near that spot. And I mean, he didn't say not to. Like, he didn't say not to do it. I mean, anyway, probably best that we don't. The point is, you know, what happened to Sean was pretty horrible. And, you know, as far as he knows and as far as what I researched, that particular lake, there's a lot of lakes. If you look at a map, because it was all frozen at one time, it was like an Arctic tundra. And so over time, as the water receded and it melted and we came out of the ice age, like a lot of that water just got trapped, you know, in puddles and pools, you know. And if you look at most of these lakes, they're kind of surrounded by like land around them, you know, and so it's like these divots where the water. And this was not a really particularly deep lake, and I don't know that this particular being or whatever it would be called lives in that lake. I wouldn't say it does because I haven't heard any other accounts of this. So him and his brother were camping there back in 2007 or 2009. Sorry, and in 2009 they were camping there, and what ended up happening was incredible. He had his dog Bud with him. It was a French bulldog. He was 4 years old, and he told me some really sweet things about his dog, and it really hit home to me. It really, because my parents, my dad and my stepmom, they have two little awful dogs now that are just, it's not the dog's fault, it's how they're raised. But they have raised them to be unruly and not very friendly. But they had, my stepmother had a dog. There was a Boston Terrier that I was actually fond of, and I liked that dog a lot, and I was really close to it. And so French bulldogs are sweet little dogs. And one of my friends' girlfriend had one, and she would bring it around to my friend's house quite a bit. And we were working together at that time, and I got to know him. His name was Tubby, and he was pretty cool. And so, yeah, I like the little dudes, man. And so this little dog, Bud, was his best friend. It was his companion, and it had helped him through some of the dark times. He lost his girlfriend. Not like she passed away, but she left him for another guy who was his really good friend while they were engaged. And it was literally, she bailed on him 2 weeks before the wedding. So that was pretty awful. And he's like, Bud was my constant companion. He got him for Christmas from that particular girlfriend that became his fiance. And then boom, she bails on him. She tried to take the dog with, like, literally dog napped it. And so he had this whole operation that he did with his friend Danny, where they ended up getting the dog back. So it was just, and then he ended up threatening to go to court. And then ultimately she just said, go ahead, take the dog. I'm not going to fight you about it. And there was enough, going back and forth. And, he believed that the judge was going to be pretty sympathetic, according to his lawyer, considering what she had done. and that the dog would not even come to her when she called it because she spanked it excessively. So, he had this dog that was a real sweetheart dog, and he loved the dog dearly. And so there was he told me this whole backstory, which made it even more, um, sad that this happened. And so one of the things that he told me that him and Bud like to do was go camping. And there were 2 or 3 different lakes that they like to go to. And today they were at a one that wasn't particularly large. It was kind of like an offshoot of a much bigger lake that there was a stream connecting them, that was further north. And so this particular lake, the fish would get trapped from going downstream, and then they couldn't get back out. So it was loaded with fish, and it was a good place to go and fish if you were a fisherman. And him and his brother were. And so him and his brother were there, and they were camping. And unfortunately, his brother passed away 2 years after this, 2 years and 2 days after this incident took place. His brother passed away being hit head on by a drunk driver, which I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've lost 2 cousins to drunk driving. I really wish people would not do it. I mean, if you're going to go out and you're going to drink and you're going to do what you're going to do, get a designated driver and stop thinking. And even if you're smoking, the reefer, it doesn't help you drive better. Okay, I can tell you that 100%. Drinking or smoking does not help you drive better. People say it helps me concentrate better. Have you actually seen video yourself next time doing these amazing activities when you're either drunk or stoned? And show the world how good you do with this stuff, because there are people in this thread will probably say, yeah, I do really good with this. I do when I'm on this or that, I'm awesome. That's what you think. There was a Family Guy episode where they had this big epic, where they went to this, I think it was like a Battle of the Bands thing, and Lois and Peter were like, singing this amazing song. It was out of this world, and they were like, spinning around, and the crowd was going crazy. And then it cuts to them just going because they're stoned, right? It's like, but that's, there's another one. It's a show called what's it called? Eastbound and Down with Danny McBride. I think Danny McBride's a comic genius, but he takes ecstasy, and he's like walking through the halls, and he's like, yeah. And everybody's like, yeah, it's slow motion cheering him on. And then it cuts to the reality, and they're all just kind of like holding their books, looking at their kids, high school kids are like, whatever, like middle school or high school, whatever. And he's just going around going, ooh, hello, yeah. And people, that's what you look like, And so he goes out into the dance floor, dances for 2 minutes, and then vomits. And so that's kind of what happens. But people think that they can do that. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, because that is not the reality, that you're better on whatever it is that you're taking. You might play video games and focus better, but even then you're probably not even playing as good as you think you are. I don't know. And so I don't know. What did Anthony say? What do you mean weird? Because it doesn't weed doesn't cure cancer and create world peace and solve all the problems. I'm unsubscribing. There is a really weird cult that has built up around marijuana use, dude. It's like they are cultish about it. I'm not joking, man. If you say something about it, and they'll argue with you, well, that's true for people who drink, but smoking weed does not impair my ability to drive. Although I literally had someone hit my car one time, and the guy got out and was like, hey, I'm sorry, man. Hey. And he was with his friend, and they were completely, and I'm kind of letting the chat fill up a little bit here before I go on with the story, just a little bit. Let's get it going. So they get out of the vehicle, and they're super apologetic, but they just wanted to give me $20 and take off. And I was like, no, you're going to give me your information. The guy's like, yeah, well, I don't know, man. I said, yeah, I do know. And I was the kind of person back in those days, I was like, you ain't going nowhere. And so you can pretend, and I took his keys, and he was like, you give me my keys back, man. Like he's cracking his knuckles, like he's going to give me a knuckle sandwich. And I'm just like, you're stoned out of your mind. Okay. You couldn't fight me sober. So stop, doing this, just exaggerated, whatever. It was ridiculous, dude. He kept like, huffing and puffing and blustering. And eventually the police showed up. And of course, the other one it has a bag of weed and he's eating it. And I'm just sitting there watching him. I'm like, whatever. This is days before like phones. Everybody had a phone. It was like 2006 or something. And I was just like, "You're not going anywhere, dude. And give me your information." He wouldn't give it to me. So the police show up, and then they're just like, "Yeah, you're high." And the guy couldn't finish the bag of weed. They had just bought a bunch of weed, and they were smoking it on the way home. And so, I mean, I don't care what you do, but don't run into me, and then try to tell me that here's $20, and give me your name and I'll call you type thing. No, dude, there's laws and rules for a reason. So then they were both like really mad at me and talking a bunch of crap. And I was like, yeah, whatever, your insurance will deal with it. And then turns out they didn't have insurance. I had to use the uninsured motorist because of these fools. But no, it doesn't help you drive better. I mean, they clearly ran a stop sign, just rolled right through it and just nailed me. They weren't going very fast, but it did do damage to my fender. So, it is what it is, man. You just got to drive careful and don't be drunk or high. That's it, period. I mean, you can be drunk or high all you want at your house or at someone else's house or at a bar. Just don't do it in a vehicle. And so what ended up happening is Sean and his brother and his dog Bud were out camping, and he was fishing from the lake and doing very well. And his little dog was there with him. And he goes, every time I'd reel a fish in, he goes, Bud would bark and run up to it and sniff it and run around in circles like he's happy because he knew that I was excited. And he said it was the most empathic dog ever. And his brother was cooking breakfast. They were up early. He was already like throwing the rod and reel out there, whatever. And he said that the day before they had caught some fish and they had already were eating a couple of them with some eggs. And he said that we were having a good time. It was just camping and hanging out and just fishing and listening to music and just relaxing. No, nothing going on. And he said that he sees the water begin to bubble up toward the middle of the lake. And the night before, he remembers being waken up by a giant splash. Like it just sounded like a boulder had been thrown in the middle of this small lake. And he was like, what the heck is that? And so, hold on one second, folks. My internet's kind of acting up. Give me 1 second. Let me fix this real quick. I will be back. Don't go anywhere, please. I gotta fix this. All right. So I think I got it fixed. The cords were loose. I was wondering what was going on because it was kind of blinking on my end. I don't know if you guys had a problem or not. Rhonda says, I have 5 kittens running around and 7 other cats. Woo! Yeah, you said your heart is full. Yeah, I bet it is. So what ended up happening is this is really tragic. So he hears this loud splash in the middle of the night, and it was his brother that originally heard it. And he was like, he woke him up, and he was like, dude, there's something out there in the lake. I just heard this loud splash. And so he didn't hear the initial like loud boom that sounded like a bomb going off in the middle of the lake. He wakes up, he's like, and I'm like, so I get up, I have the flashlight, and I see the water moving like kind of like a wave, like something was in the water. And so he was just like, So he just kind of like ignored it, you know, and just said, well, I don't see anything now, you know, and it happened right there by their camp. So they decided to go to sleep. And this is a really cool spot that they had found that their dad had introduced them to when they were younger. And this happened, you know, when they were in their early 20s. And he said that it was a pretty cool spot. And so we just we chalked it up to, you know, whatever, something odd happened, you know, it's just, it is what it is. And so he's like, we just go back to sleep. He goes, but my brother couldn't sleep and he kept having bad dreams. So the next morning we get up and he's like, his brother had dreamed this, almost like he had a premonition. He said, dude, there's something in this lake. He goes, after this afternoon and we're done, whatever. He's like, I want to leave. Well, first he'd said he wanted to leave right then. He said, I wish I would have listened to my brother. And he said at that time, he did not anticipate anything. He goes, I didn't feel things like that. He's like, my brother had that ability. My brother had the ability to feel things that were going to come, you know. And he said that they literally, his grandmother was gypsy from France, like from way back, you know. And he said that her parents were, you know, whatever, gypsy. And they had migrated to Canada like years, generations before or whatever. And so his grandmother did not grow up in France as a gypsy, but her parents did. And so when they migrated to Canada, and then she met their grandfather, and that was on their mom's side. So they had some gypsy blood, and he thinks that may have contributed to them being able to his brother having that ability of precognition. And so his brother was also very empathic. He says, me, I am not. He goes, I don't have that ability. He's like, I take after my dad's side. I'm very pragmatic. I didn't believe in ghosts. I didn't believe in monsters. All that was the stuff of fantasy. He's like, you know, I watched Frankenstein, Dracula, things like that, and I never batted an eye or for a second thought that any of it could be real. But he did say something kind of odd to me. He said that the mummy always kind of bothered him, you know, like the idea of a curse, I guess, you know, whatever kind of like struck a nerve with him. Because his aunt would tell him, his aunt would do things like she would read tarot and do all this stuff. And she was real into curses, and they were real, and scared the crap out of him with the whole mummy's curse, you know? So he had that kind of story he remembers as a kid, like scaring him. But other than that, he goes, I don't remember anything like that preceded this event. So he's like, you know, he's down there by the lake at Lake's Edge, and he's fishing. And he said at one point he should have paid attention better. And it was always this shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know. And he was fishing, and his dog began to growl, and he caught something snagged on his line, and it bent the pole so bad. He was like, oh, this must be a really big fish, you know. So he keeps trying, and then it got so bad that he couldn't hold on to the fishing reel, and it yanked out of his hand. And he goes, I'm a strong guy, and the rod felt like it was going to break. So it was either going to break or I was going to lose it. And I ended up losing it. I couldn't hold on to it. And my dog was growling and acting weird and kind of running backwards, and then running toward the lake and then running backwards. And as I got away from the lake, Bud, the dog, his name is Bud, ran back toward the camp with me, which was only about 20 yards. And so his dog goes and sits down by the fire and decides to not go back down toward the lake with him. And so he thought that was strange. He kept calling him, come on, Bud. And Bud didn't do it. He did not do it. And Bud was pretty good about being quiet while he was fishing. But then when he would catch a fish, he'd kind of go crazy. Then he'd calm back down and start all over again. And he said, and this place was an excellent place to fish. He's like, there was no buddy there to disturb us. He goes, it was like a family secret place, you know. And he said that his dad had, like he said, he had introduced him to it and had always kind of kept it hush hush, and only a few people knew about it. And that little spot right there where they went to camp was like a clearing, like a little cul-de-sac of trees. And so it was a beautiful, beautiful spot. The way he described it, he said he had nothing but fond memories of that place since he was like a small child. And he said that they had lost their mother when they were young, and his dad had raised them, but also they had an aunt who helped raise them too. And he said that the fond memories he had of his mother were always there, you know. And so what ended up happening is that, you know, after this dog Bud that had helped him so much through so much tragedy in his life, he had lost his uncle to cancer, and he had his fiance had left him and abandoned him, you know, and so this dog was like, you know, and he had a dog previously that had passed away, so the dog was a gift, you know, from somebody who at that time he was really close to before she betrayed him. And so, you know, this dog was like slept in the bed with him, ate with him, did everything with him. They went jogging together. He was my little buddy. He was my everything. You know, he goes, I love that dog immensely. And in fact, that dog, the girl that he was starting to date at the time that this happened, it was because of Bud when he was at the park that he met her and her dog. I can't remember what he said the dog's name was. But anyway, her little dog and Bud were friends. And so they would play, and then he got to know her. And next thing you know, he's like, hey, you know, let's go get a cup of coffee. And then one thing led to another. So life was looking up. He was doing good. He was slowly but surely getting through school, and he was almost to where he was going to be done with his trade school, and he was going to be getting a decent job. And so everything, you know, was looking up. But, you know, when things are going really well, life has a way of throwing you curveballs. And for some of us, life, who people in this chat in particular know, that life can throw you things that are not of the norm. These things are quite out of the norm. They're paranormal. And so what ended up happening in broad daylight, he said it was about 1 PM at this point, you know, he kept fishing. He's like, we had ate breakfast, and he's like, and my dog refused to come down to the water with me. He's like, and then the water begins to boil up. Like, he's like, it was crazy. It looked like boiling water. There was steam coming off of it too. And then he sees this thing. You could see it, like the water was moving. And right before it broke the surface, he goes, I see these weird ram horns. He goes, I'll never forget it. They looked like ram horns with like warts on them or something. He goes, there's only about 40 yards out. I could see it pretty clearly. He's like, you know, like it was so large. He's like, and then this thing just breaks the surface of the water and comes shooting straight up. He's like, and what I saw, he's like, I was completely unprepared for what I saw. I did not think that something like this existed. I thought that this was only, you know, in comic books or movies, something of fiction. Very, very weird. What I saw was not only weird, but it was striking fear into my heart. And my brother, he goes, he stood up and he screamed my name. He's like, Sean. And he's like, I turned around and I looked, and this thing, it was gone. Like it had shot up in the air and flew off. And he said that at that time, his dog, obviously to try to protect him, not much a little French bulldog can do, but it runs up behind him and starts to growl and bark and run around in circles to try to protect him. But he was like, there's nothing this little dog could do to protect me from such a thing. He's like, but it disappeared. It was gone. And I thought, well, maybe that's the worst of it. And he said that this thing looked like some sort of demon. It had a human-like face with this big, big ram horns on its head and these big wings that were like kind of down when it shot up out of the water. They were just kind of folded down, like it had jumped up. And when he looked up, he saw them unfurl and then flap and take off. And it had these huge legs. The whole body was covered in scales, in particular the legs. And the midsection looked to be more like a man. But when it went up to the chest and the arms, from what he could see at the beginning of this encounter. Thank you for that, Two Shadows. We appreciate that. Donations are not expected, but they greatly appreciated. And he said that when this thing shot up out of the water, he's like, I got a good look at it, but it wasn't, you know, perfect, perfect. I could not, wrap my mind around it. He said, then we hear this screeching, howling noise over the treetops, which I could only assume was this creature. Then it swoops down. He's like, and as I'm running back to camp, he's like, I was holding Bud. He goes, and I trip. And my dog jumps around me, running around in circles, and I'm trying to calm him down, and he's squirming, and I'm trying to grab him. And he goes, my brother comes out with an axe. You know, he's like, that's all we had was an axe handle and a machete and a knife. And he's like, this thing comes swooping down. And he goes, and it happened so fast. It was like a shadow passed over me. And all I hear is my dog yelping. And it grabs him. He's like, right there with its feet. He's like, but my brother managed to throw this axe, and it actually struck it, actually hit it, and like kind of knocked it off course a little bit. And it turned and almost dropped his dog, but the claw had dug in. He goes, and I could see that it was its clawed feet. It looked almost bird-like. It was like a mixture of lizard and bird. Had lodged itself into the side of my dog. And he said that this thing took off over the lake. And he said that there was nothing he could do. And he said that, his brother they threw things at it, whatever. And get this, his brother comes out with a rifle. And he was in shock. He was like, he did not know that his brother had brought a gun. Because prior to this event, Sean was very anti-gun. He said, I was very anti a lot of things. He's like, and I thought that, guns were bad, and I had been conditioned, to think that guns were evil. He's like, the girl that I was with before, she was very anti-gun, and she kind of instilled that in me about how they kill people and blah, blah, blah. And so I had vowed not to have a gun, not to use a gun. And I didn't want to be like the crazy Americans, as they say up in Canada, and shoot everything in sight and blah, blah, blah. He gave me all this stuff that he'd sound very remorseful. But his brother ran to the shore and fired at this thing 3 times. This gun was old and it belonged to their grandfather. And he said that he shot, reloaded, breech loading, boom, shot again. This time he hit something on it because it moved. And then the third shot, he got it. And he could see this plume of, I don't know, something come off of its back. And he said that when that happened, it dropped Bud right there on the shore on the far side. And he said that, dude, I was so freaked out. I didn't have time to go run and go around the other city. He goes, and I was scared to go into the lake for fear that there was another one of these creatures there in the water. What if I get into the middle of the water and one of these things grabs me? He goes, none of that was even like going through my mind until I was halfway across that lake. And like he said, until you get to the middle of the lake, it was shallow and it got kind of deep toward the middle. He's like, and I was swimming for everything I had. I could see Bud barely moving. And then I hear the screeching and I look over the treetops and there's this thing circling like a buzzard, like a vulture. He goes, and I just kept swimming. And my brother's screaming at me the whole time to come back. Come back. He's like, but I love my dog so much. And he's like, well, if I get to the other side and there's Bud, who had been partially in the water, and from breathing in the water because he couldn't move, he had like kind of looked bloated and he was trying to get the water out of him, but it was too late. There was nothing they could do. And he's like, I lost my dog that day to something. I don't know what. He's like, if I had to put my finger on it, I would say it was some kind of demon that had the ability to make itself flesh. And he said that it was one of the hardest things that he'd ever dealt with. And he's like, and even if the dog wasn't even deceased yet, I mean, he was dying, but he was like, he could see that his body was broken. It was done. So he lost his best friend. And he said that ever since that day, he's never been the same. And the only solace he could take from it was that, well, this bastard didn't get to do anything to his dog, didn't get to eat him or take whatever it was planning on doing. So that was it. You know, it's a sad thing. It's a very horrible thing what happened. And he gave me a couple of other little stories, things that happened after this. And I will tell those in 1 second. Give me a second. I'll be right back. All right, folks. So that story, I know it was unpleasant. I saw Spelling T saying that she wanted the story to end. I'm sorry that that's, you know, that it was that way. But yeah. So there were a couple other little odd things that happened to him after this incident. Years later, he's married to the girl that he was dating at that time. They were driving down a highway not far from where this incident took place. He wanted to show her that beautiful spot, but after that, he could not go back ever. And he talked to her one day. He said it was a mistake, actually, to kind of romanticize, because I was talking about being a child and enjoying going to that particular spot by the lake. And so my girlfriend, he's like, I want to go there. I want to see. And he had not told her every detail about losing the dog. He had just told her that there was this entity that had come out of the lake and attacked them, and Bud, trying to protect him, I guess, ended up being taken and hurt. So she knew the dog, she remembered him, and she was fond of the little dude, and it broke her heart. But he said, you know, they went to a therapist, and it was really about relationship issues. They were having some relationship issues because she was really good friends with a guy. And get this, this is just, you know, this is about human life here. That's how it goes. But she was really good friends with the guy, and she was like, oh, he's my friend. He's my friend. He doesn't want anything from me. We just work together. And then she was going out with her friends and having drinks. And then this guy shows up. And the next thing you know, he's trying to be more than friends. And then she finally was like, okay, yeah. And that led to some serious issues, and they almost broke up because she refused to be, to, in his words, and this is just, sort of off topic, but still on topic. She refused to accept what he saw and what her own friend saw. And her female friend was telling her, hey, this guy's got the hots for you. It's not really respectful to Sean, And she was just like, no, he's just a nice guy. He's just a nice guy. But he was like 10 years older than her or something. And he brought flowers to her, and she still even like played it off like, oh, it was just a friendly thing. And I'm listening to this guy and I'm going like, no, it's not. That's kind of crossing the line to a married woman. I mean, what are you doing bringing flowers to a married woman, especially roses? It was like, it wasn't cool. So they had some issues. And so they ended up going into therapy. But one of the things the therapist did do, which was helpful, was say that they had some issues, especially him, some undiagnosed PTSD issues about what had happened to his dog. And she, the girlfriend, had thrown his business out there to the therapist that he had these issues, abandonment issues and all these other issues because of his mother dying and then the dog being killed. And so the therapist started getting really deep into what about this situation that happened with Bud. And he was like, well, that situation is really nobody's business. But she assured him that she was a sympathetic ear. And so a couple of months go by, and it gets revisited during one of these sessions where they get kind of heated and arguing. And he's like, we were fine. And we'd go to the therapist and we would argue. He's like, and then we'd argue for 2 days. So I told him I didn't want to go back to the therapist because all it did was create more arguments. But what he didn't realize was it was part of the healing process, and that it was actually working, and that the therapist was a devout Christian, and she believed in these things and even had a story of her own. And she was like, look, I normally don't open up to patients and tell them, this is what blah, blah, blah. But she said that when she was young, it's not a real long story. She said that when she was young, there was a mirror in their house, and people would see things moving in and out of this mirror. Like, it was like, she said, I don't know, it was like looking into the past. You could see people like doing their makeup, people like dressed in like 1920s, clothing, 20s and 30s, She said it was bizarre. And she said that one day something grabbed her sister by the ankle and tried to pull her into that mirror. But it wasn't like the mirror was two-way in the way that her sister's foot was getting caught on the glass of the mirror. She couldn't, whatever it was, could reach out, but couldn't pull her in. And so she screamed and she pulled her sister away from it. And then their dad took it out and to the field behind the house and broke it down. And there were no more issues. And the mother was upset. She's like, my mother was mad at my dad and didn't believe our story, and for years was like grieving over this mirror, which was really weird. But then when her mother died, they found out, this is the therapist, right? She said then when their mother died, they found out that she was like smitten with some guy that she would see in this mirror. It was so bizarre. Like, she said she was like taken by him, it was like she couldn't. So it was like this weird paranormal, story, whatever. And so he says, and so he's telling me this, and I'm like, wow, the therapist told you that? And he's like, yeah. He goes, but that's what helped me to open up. Yes, Sergeant Ross says, I'll email my poltergeist demon house experiences. Yeah, I don't know if you've given me those before, or was that another person with a poltergeist demon house that was recently? And yes, Dakota, there is a mirror like that in a hotel in San Antonio, Manger. So, and there's another weird mirror that people report seeing things, and that's the Emily Morgan, which we stayed at. And we were on the floor, and that mirror is right there when you walk out of the elevator. Yeah. Yeah. And then I lived in a house where the mirror was quite the issue. But these spirits, they do dwell there. They come in and out of these things, Yeah, Bear County Bigfoot, which is Dave Nichols. Yeah, the Manger. Yeah, And so what ended up happening is he's like, I opened up to this woman, and I told her the entire story. And so then She begins to, let me change the banner here, folks, because the show has already begun. If you have stories to please send them. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget that we are on, typically, this is the Tuesday show. We're on every Tuesday, regardless, whether it's going to be a live stream or a pre-record. Tomorrow night, we're releasing an episode. It's a pre-record, hour long. We're going back to the podcast because so many people from the podcast, there's more people that listen to the podcast than the YouTube, believe it or not. And so they're all like, where are you at? There's no shows. There's no shows. No shows coming out. And I can make fun of them because they're not going to see this anyway. Joking. But no, they're like clamoring for us to make these hour-long podcast episodes. And they're just, I'm like, there's a live stream where we're doing a lot of work right now. And one of the things that we're doing right now, and I've said this before, which is why we've been on every day trying to find a good spot, because we're trying to figure out who we can take with us to Rumble. And we're not abandoning YouTube. We're still going to do YouTube like 3-4 times a week, but we're going to do a couple Rumble shows a week, one during the day probably, and then we're going to do a Saturday night. So there you go. And we've even thought about on some Saturdays, like maybe every other Saturday, we'll do a double header. We'll do a YouTube during the day, which seemed to work out pretty well. And then we'll do a Rumble one at night. And the Rumble one at night will be on Saturday, where we get into some real deep, stuff. And if you're not into it, you're not into it. That's it. So what ended up happening is this woman, the therapist with the mirror, she was listening to him. And yes, that's true, SJP. Not only is that in the Jewish tradition, it's that in the Arab tradition too. There's a lot of different cultures that do that. In certain Chinese provinces, it's very common to do that. And there's certain groups of people, Gypsies, Laplanders, a lot of them do that. So whenever this story was given to me, he was going into all this detail, and he asked me if this was necessary talk about, and I told him absolutely not. This is totally up to you whether or not you want this told or not. And he thought about it, and he was like, yeah, sure. So after having talked to her and told her his story, and then of course she had opened up to him about this mirror, his girlfriend, or at the time his girlfriend, they were getting married or whatever, or they had gotten married, and she's in the bathroom and she screams and she comes running out. And in all these years, he had never given her the description of this thing, of this being that, and this, he said, was about 2.5 years after his brother's death. So he was grieving. He was going through all this trauma from his brother, what happened with his dog, and just having witnessed it was horrific. And so this girlfriend, which became his wife, she tells him what she saw in the mirror, what she looked at. She started to describe this creature with a greenish black face, human-like face. She said it had a really wide, big nose, but it had like a protruding brow line, a really big lower jaw, and it looked very ogreish, or like an ogre. She kept describing it like as an ogre. And she said that it had like these weird tentacle looking things, but they that's kind of like it was hair, but they were like tube-like, came down to like these points. And she said that it had this big ram horns, and it was standing there looking at her in the mirror in the bathroom. And she said that it had these wings that unfurled behind it, and it screeched really loud. But the amazing thing was that he was on the other side of the door and he didn't hear anything. And everything that happened was just based on what she said, because nothing happened to him. And when she began to give him this information about what she saw in the mirror, he's like, it gave me instant like anxiety. I had a full-blown panic attack. I had to go outside and freak out. Yeah, somebody says Bloody Mary. Yeah, there's some stories about that too. I've gotten a couple of stories like that. Somebody emailed me one a couple months ago, and then most recently, I think about 2 weeks ago, somebody sent me one. Somebody says here, I just subscribed and was referred by Jesse and Joe at Hellbent Holler. Been also watching PRT for about 2 weeks and am hooked. Love the content. Thank you. We appreciate that. And so what ended up happening, she tells him this story of this thing, and he says, dude, I couldn't breathe, man. He goes, I went outside and I almost fell off of my porch. I just couldn't deal with it. I was like, this thing is in my house. It showed up at my house. He had nightmares for a while about this thing, and it had stopped. And when his brother passed over, he says, I saw my brother multiple times, but the last time, which was like the 6th time I saw him, he said, my brother told me this will be it. I won't be around for a while. I got things to do. He's like, and get this, he told him, he's like, they got me a job on the other side. I got things to do. He's like, I'll check in on you, but I won't be visiting with you. Now, that's interesting because when my cousin Paul Anthony passed away, I saw him multiple times. And then the last time we talked, we were in a garden and we were walking together. And he told me, he says, this will be the last time you see me for a long time. And it was. Until recently. I dreamed about him not too long ago, about a month ago. And it was brief, but he was in the dream. And it had been years since I had dreamed about him. So I know that's how it works. So he was, told that he wasn't going to. But that was really, really interesting because what happened was please do, Sergeant. I appreciate that. Ooh, really interesting there. Kevin Clow. So what ended up happening, he's like, he goes, my brother, I think his spirit, the last time he came with me, there was this pillar of light that was with him. And he said it was very angelic. He's like, when it moved, you could see the outlines of a beautiful, beautiful person. It was a male. He had shoulder-length hair. It was blonde. He said in the area around the eyes was not glowing blue, like it wasn't real, like the borders weren't real perfect, but it was like the light in the area around the eyes was just kind of like it went up and became kind of blue and then faded out into like this white light. And he said, I knew that this being next to him, which was twice his size, was like an angel. And this angel told him in this dreamlike state he was in, no, Panzer, no, I had to open my door. Panzer's going to come up and you're going to come up in here, aren't you? And so this angel, good boy. So this angel of the Lord, which is what he described it as, told him, he's like, be not afraid. And told him to cry out in the name of Jesus. So, and when he was out on the back porch, he remembered all this. It came flooding back to him and he ran back into the house and he went, and his wife is like, what's going on? She's pregnant at the time. And he's like, I'm not letting this happen. I'm not letting this happen. He's like, I should have done this when this thing attacked, And he says he goes into the bathroom and he just starts screaming in the name of Jesus, be gone. And grabs the Bible and he goes, and I just opened it up. And it was to Mark, and he goes, and I just started reading random passages. And he's like, and it seemed to work. Like it was like, this calm down, this, and it never showed up again. He goes, and I could feel that energy dissipate. He's like, but the audacity of this demonic entity to show up like that. So then we talked about this and we went over all this different information and stuff. We talked about the Nephilim. We talked about all this different stuff. And I told him, I said, these things, they're demonic for sure, but they can manifest as physical. This thing was in the water. When it came up out of the water went everywhere. This thing grabbed your dog and took his life. I said, these things have the ability to do this. The question is why and how. Why they do the things they do is because they're wholly evil, W-H, not H-O, but they are wholly evil, completely evil, and they despise us. This was their world at one time. They believe it's their world still. I do believe they come from the inner earth as a physical species, many of them. And I will get into a theory I have about that before I move on to the next story. I will be right back. Tuesday, and I think there'd be this much stuff to deal with. Phone keeps going off, trying to do the show and trying to run the business. It's difficult. One of our supervisors is out today. She's been taken ill, so we've been kind of having to answer calls, but I got Anthony doing something else regarding the show. So Kevin Cloud's comment says, "It sounds like the thing I fought in a dream once. It was trying to get my buddy's newborn, so I blasted it with light from my belly button area like a ball of energy." The light, the white light does work, and it can come from anywhere. I didn't know if it comes from your navel, it comes from your navel. Let's see. I'm dealing with work stuff here. I called out to Anthony, but I don't think he heard me. I think I need a therapist so I can have them tell me that I work too much. So, any questions before we move on with that show? That was the last time that he had anything like that happen. He did hear noises for a little bit, like he heard a growling noise. And then one time he was in the kitchen and his current dog, she got freaked out and like ran out to the back door and almost broke the back door down trying to get out of the house because they heard something growling. No, Rhonda, Panzer is not a black cat. Scorpion says, "I miss Panzer." Okay. Martis is the black cat. Scorpion, you didn't even spell Martis's name right. Scorpion's been staying at an apartment that's on site because the homeless people there are so bad that he has to kind of be on a 24-hour call. Yes, Charles, if you have stories, email them to us. Yeah, you can come on live or I can relay the stories to you. Mr. Bouillon Noyer says, "I had a Bigfoot nightmare today. It was in my house and I couldn't escape. I hated it. Laugh out loud." There's a lot of people who have nightmares about Bigfoot. No pork and beans. I didn't have to go poo. Yes, Dave Howe, there are methods of getting rid of things, and there's as silly as this may sound, Charles Centers says this here, and I'm gonna agree with it. He says Kevin Cloud can manifest energy balls too to use in defense, but also offense, and you focus it in your mind, and it is a form of white light energy. Don't let these fundamentalist wackos tell you that that's not the case. It's just not. That's a scary story, Joe. Yeah, you've told me that one. Oh, man. Dr. Doom on my hat? No, no, no. This is that's the Shredder from Ninja Turtles. And this is my Ninja Turtle shirt. So no, it's not Dr. Doom. Thank you for posting that, Sugar Britches. My name is pronounced Bouillon Air. Oh, okay, but it's actually Bouillon Noir. Like that's okay, Nair. Okay, Bouillon Nair. But it's Bouillon Air, so you should have just called it Bouillon Air instead of Bouillon Nair. Anyways, being run by a mantis being, it was very tall. You know, a lot of times these dreams mean a lot more than it's not like people think, oh, I just had a dream, you know. It's just a dream, but it's not just a dream. These are not just dreams people are having. Thank you for that donation, Flacco. Appreciate it. If cockroaches were exposed to the same ooze, I can't drink that right now. I am, yes, please. I mean, I guess I can. No, I can't do it right now. Sorry. Nelly tried to come and sneak that disgusting drink on me. Just can't take the taste of it right now. Yeah, that's a good one. You know, harping blues. Nah, we definitely go into other dimensions sometimes. Sometimes I think they are just dreams, though. Yeah, that's true too. That's crazy, man. Thank you for that donation. George, is what? How do you say it? Georgia Nastasia, and Anastasia. I don't know how to say that. Now they're vivid but not horrifying nightmares anymore. Look at this one. Lisa says, I had a recurring nightmare when I was a kid that someone or something that looked like my mom would drag me through our living room mirror at night, and I had to find my way out. Oh, well, you can be kidding me. Not cool. Yeah, I get these stories all the time of people having to fight their way out of different scenarios, you know. I have to eat something. I'm about to pass out in front of you guys. I'm not eating today, and I'm doing really rough here. But any more questions about this story? Because that's pretty much it. Do you have a recommendation reading list for us to study different subjects? I'm thinking you're saying. Yeah, I do. I could give you. I don't know if I should do that on YouTube though. I don't know, because I had a friend who was gotten in touch with me recently saying that the things that I've been saying might create an issue for me, and there are certain books that I might get in trouble for promoting. which is weird because, I mean, to me, I think you should be able to read what you want, right? But they don't really like that. So I'm just going to err on the side of caution for now. And somebody said do it on Rumble. That's the plan. I do, Froetian. I do. What is your interest in the Japanese stories? So I'm going to tell you my theory on some of these beings. We talked about last night about the black goo. I was recently telling someone that we were talking about this, and then I talked about it with Nellie and Anthony last night. And I think that this black goo, I apologize for eating on camera, but if I don't do something, I'm not feeling too good. Yeah, SJP, the black goo freaks me out more than anything else. Yeah, it does me too. Not more than anything else, but it freaks me out. Josh, do you have a link from that group of Bible verses from a few nights ago? Your best bet is just to go back. I can look it up, but it would take me some time. And so I would just say go back and listen to the show and just write down the ones I said would be the best bet, and then do your own research on it, because I don't want to spoon feed people anything. And then what you'll get from the roofie guys of the world, is that I'm trying to get you to believe that the Anunnaki created us and blah, 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 blah. Like, dude, I don't know who created us. Okay. I just know that for what I have seen, there's two different things going on from the Old Testament to the New. Anybody with half a brain who's not allowing themselves to be diluted by a preconceived notion that they were taught can connect the dots and see that. But if you're, stuck in this particular dogma or whatever it may be, then you're going to have issues. And if you go and see the person that's leading the charge against me with all that, go look at PRT News. He turned berry picking into some crap. I mean, come on. It's getting ridiculous. He claims he's got 20 people that were former PRT people that are in his cabal with him. It's unfortunate because I thought some of those people were my friends, but they turned on me. More's the pity. The suicide forest, what I believe is going on there, and I'll give you my take on it real quick. People go into that forest because there's been so much death already there. That forest was a place of slaughter anyway, going way back. There was a feudal battle there. That's what's weird is there's a legend that there was this big battle that took place there, but they can find no archaeological evidence of it. But I think it was because it was cleaned up and looted after the battle. The Japanese are very thorough. And so there's a record of there having been this battle going way back, and a bunch of people died there. And so it was a place where people from their own families and clans could go and take their own life in peace, which sounds kind of weird, but if you're not Japanese, you probably wouldn't understand it. I'm not Japanese, but I can understand their perspective on it, which is something that we need to do. You, as an individual, everyone who's listening, remember, perception is the key that unlocks the intangible power of the spirit. Without it, you're nothing. And if you have no perception, well, then you don't have the key to the soul. You have to be able to not only perceive the world around you correctly, but perceive what others are perceiving, and even go so far as to be able to have enough perception to perceive what those people are perceiving you perceiving. Does it make sense? Power without perception is spiritually useless. That's all it is. I mean, you can have all the power in the world, but if you have no perception, you're useless. It is useless. So to understand other people, other cultures, and other beliefs, you have to have a perception. It is very arrogant and foolish to believe that one small little group of people on this planet are loved more by God than anyone else. And it's ridiculous to think that all the answers to the universe all come from that one little group, and that everyone else is just devoid of anything. I don't believe that. You got, 8 billion people on the planet. And I don't believe everyone is wrong. Now, I don't believe everyone is right either. Like I've said before, everybody is right, but everybody's also wrong. So SJP says the dragon influences the Japanese, which is why suicide was such a big thing in their culture. And after hearing the underground lizard story in China, it ties a lot of that together. I'm glad you mentioned that, because when you go back and you look at some of these cases, the late Brenton Sawin, if you look at him, for an example, he ran into a creature that we would describe as the Darrow. Look into the Shaver mysteries. What happened was this thing had a really long nose and big ears. Your nose and ears never stop growing. That's why when people get older, they kind of have this bigger honker. The ears are kind of dragging to the ground. The older that you get, it's just what happens. Your earlobes are bigger now than I was when I was in my 20s. And that's a true thing. So this thing must have been some sort of ancient creature, and it had this blue stuff on it. Now, if you go back and you listen to the episode where we talk about, and like I said, I'm trying to get these episodes cataloged, but right now I'm not able to really find anybody that's going to be able to do it for me without wanting me to pay them like a bunch of money, which I'm willing to pay, but not what people have been asking me for. And I'm like, I can't afford that right now. We don't have the money to pay for our legal fees and buy equipment and do all of that. So I'm kind of in a catch-22 of where I put the money, and I can't just keep feeding the show from my other businesses. At some point, something's got to give. So that being said, what ended up happening is these, what I think is going on, like the woman that was in China and her daughter who went to Purdue, I believe, she translated for me, and she's a doctor, and she was sitting there going, I can't believe this. And I'm talking about this stuff as a person that believes in science. But she's like, I believe what my mother said. She ended up in this inner earth world with these elves, which is going to be the subject of an upcoming episode, Elves of the Inner Earth. These beings, what they do is they kidnap people, and I think they use them for various things. One of the things I've noticed, though, is that sometimes these beings have blue splotches on them, like the stories that we got. Okay, and this is courtesy of Josh Pinocchio. This is a story that comes from the Yellowstone, the Yosemite. There were these people that were abducted by these half bear, half man type creatures, and they had this blue stuff on their arms that looked like markings. But one of the people that was taken had said that these markings on them, these blue markings, and this is somebody who, after I talked about this on the show, her name was Kiara, she reached out to me and said that actually her uncle was one of the people that was taken in one of these national forests, and it wasn't Yosemite, it was another one. I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want problems, but he described a being that had almost like how it looked like tribal tattoos, but they weren't. It was like some sort of weird, what he called growth. And now this blue stuff or whatever could be something like akin to like a fungus. This fungus could be what makes these beings act irrational and causes them to live above ground, because this blue fungus could be what gets inside of these beings and makes them act irrational and leave their home turf in search of who knows what. Because there were 4 of these beings and they were all living inside of a shallow cave, and there were bones everywhere of every type of animal, including human. And what these things did was they would go out of their cave and snatch people up, and he had no doubt that they were planning on killing and eating him. An amazing story, and I'm going to get into it one day, but he was saved by an unlikely hero. And I'm going to get into that story one day. And I don't think that these things that saved him, I'm under no illusions that Kiara's uncle was saved by anything other than divine providence. The beings that were the heroes, you can't really call them heroes. I'll make a note that we're going to talk about that one, to go and look that story up. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to do a whole show on it, because now I have one, two, I know there's another one. I know there's at least 3, but there might be another one of these beings fighting one another. All right, anyway. So on to the next story. What we have, and then again, it goes back into the black goo too. Who knows what this black goo is and how much it influences people and beings, because the black goo, I think, is something different than the blue fungus. I call it a fungus. I think that's what it is. I think it grows on these beings. But I think that this black goo is something completely different. I think it's not completely different. It is a type of like parasite, but it is a satanic parasite. It is the evil. The black goo is what warped Lucifer and made him think that he could be better than God. And the black goo is what warped, that's what I think. I think these beings that rebel, that go into this spirit of rebellion, I think all of it comes from this black goo, this dark matter, if you will. And I think that the black, dark goo, whatever, the dark matter is the antithesis to the true God, the true living God. Just my observation. Thank you to those who donated. Amy Krill says, sounds like the cordyceps fungus that zombifies ants and makes them seek a high place to release spores. Yeah, very much so. Give me 1 second, folks. Be right back. It's JP. Yeah, you're correct. Lucifer and Satan are not the same being. Satan in itself is a title, but it's also a type of being. It's a race of beings known as the Shaitan. Scorpion asked the question, so would you agree that the black goo is pure concentrated evil? Yes, I would. I would absolutely say that that's what that is. That's what we're dealing with. I would say that it is the evil. There are texts, Jewish texts, that talk about how the darkness, the iniquity, or the evil overcame the heart of the adversary, whatever that adversary would be, and it turned him evil. It consumed him like a bush, like a burning bush of fire. Really odd, because then later on you get Moses talking to a burning bush. So I don't know. SJP says, I'm talking about the Lucifer thrown out of heaven. Yes, I get that. No, it says Satan was a seraphim. There is no evidence to say that the Shaitan were anything other than the Shaitan. The Shaitan were a race of beings. Just like in the Lord of the Rings, how they say that there were these elves or whatever that were once, the orcs were once elves that were twisted and turned malignant. Not the Orcai, because that was something that they later had. If you look at the Lord of the Rings, it kind of gives you a soft disclosure there. The orcs themselves, the ones that were normal, skinny, that you can tell that they were once elves that were corrupted. And somewhere down the line, they just became their own evil race of beings, just like a rabble, of evil. But the Orcai, the big, strong, whatever, they were a breeding program that they used, that the orcs themselves, they created another race of being that was bigger, stronger, more powerful. Doesn't say exactly how they did it, but my theory would be that they used man and bred them with the orc and created a hybrid, which would give you like a bigger, stronger being, whatever. But anyway, it's fiction. But like Gaetano says, fiction and reality, the lines blur. SJP says that's the dragon, who the Far East worship. They don't really worship a dragon. That's another misconception. There's not a lot of dragon worship unless you call obsessing on something, which can be considered worship. So I guess in that way, yeah, but they don't actually bow down and worship a dragon. But they do hold the dragon in high regard, in particular, certain places in China. Now, not all of China is that way. A lot of them are just very secular. Like South Korea is more secular than religious. Buddhism is the main religion there, but it's gotten so far that it's not even there's not even that many Buddhists anymore. They're almost purely secular. But in China, it's weird because China is where communism has taken hold and they have stamped out religion for the most part. And in a lot of places, there's not a lot of, open worship of anything because there's no spirituality. But in South Korea, it's not even communism, and they have kind of gone in that direction of secularism. And there isn't a lot of like dragon worshiping, although there is some, but it's not like you would think where they revere the dragon, so everybody thinks, oh, they're over here worshiping a dragon, whatever, But that's the Romans using the Spanish to create the Praetorian Guard. Some of the Praetorian were Iberian Celtic hybrids, but that was later on. They didn't use them to make the Praetorian so much as they used them to make soldiers that would fight in the next generation against heavy foot soldiers like the Germans. The Germans, not the Teutons. The Teuton Germans were very much cavalry, but the Trier Austrian Germans, a lot of them were just big, heavy foot soldiers. They fought with axes, and they were very barbaric, and they fought wild. But their favorite thing to do was ambush from the side, because flanking the Romans would prevent the Tortuga from being able to use it, the turtle formation. So we're not going to get into that, but that's D Truth has a good question here. Do you feel God will punish loyal people of other religions? I don't know. I think that what's going to happen, you're going to find is there's going to be a lot of Christians and pious Christians and Muslims who are going to be severely punished, along with all races and all religions, because everyone has fallen short of the glory of God. Yes, Werewolf, you're right. Confucius beliefs are allowed in China, but it works with communism. I think that what's going to happen is you're going to see a very, very, very severe falling away from all spirituality in the coming years. And that is going to be people falling away from the church. But it doesn't say that people are falling away from the church because they're bad. It just says they're falling away from the church. That's not necessarily like people that go away from the church are evil, but the church itself is corrupted. When you have to have a 501c, and I say this again, that is state approved. I don't mean by the state of Texas or the state of New Jersey or the state of Illinois, state of New York. What I'm talking about is the state, the government approves of you preaching the way you're preaching. And especially when you have a country that has been taken over by a very, very powerful secular belief. And they have pushed God almost completely out of everything. So then what kind of people are we being led around by when they say you can preach this way, but don't get too happy with it, because if you do, we'll pull it. So if I were to register as a church, I could get a 501c4 or whatever it's called, and then I could preach how I want. No, you have to follow certain guidelines, and if you go outside those guidelines, they pull that tax exempt status. So you better believe these people fall in line, and they preach a very narrow. So they're given this little bit of information in this book, and they just run around in circles preaching from that, and they don't deviate outside of it. So then you create a bunch of morons like the ones that are going out and saying all this crazy stuff about me, because that's all they've ever been taught. That's all they know. That's all they understand. And it is their fault, even though people have said, well, it's not their fault because they don't grasp whatever. Yes, it is their fault because the information is there. They refuse to look at it. It's like if you were born in a hamster cage, right? Like Thanos and Galactus, my guinea pigs. When we take them out and let them run out of their cage or whatever, they don't go run all over the place and whatever. They just stand there by the cage, and then they want to get back in as soon as possible. It's a conditioned behavior. They were like that when we got them. So I can take them out and play with them and pet them and give them love. And then, but they're more than happy to just run back into that cage. And then they cry out for food when you walk by. They go, ee, ee, ee. They want to eat. And once they're fed, then they run into their little house and they avoid you. Hey, Beans, what are you doing? You want to say hi? Are you on camera? Let's take her off. Let's take this off real quick. There's Beans. You want to say hi? You're hiding behind the microphone, sweetie. Look at her. Whoa, you're getting so big. I'm not going to put my face too close to you because you'll lick me. And you didn't. So Beansy is getting big. This is my Beansy girl. Yes, this is sweet girl. Uh-oh. Here comes Marmar. He's getting jealous. Go chase him off. Get after him. Oh. There she goes. She did exactly what I said. Anthony's right there. You want to say hi, Anthony, so they can hear you?
Hey, everyone.
So she's jumping around. She's excited.
What you doing, man? Say hi. Say hi.
So the door was open. Anthony got some stuff out here. There's Panzer. Panzer, what's up, buddy? He'll probably come too. Come on. There's my big kitty. What's up, Bubba? What are you doing? This is Panzer. This is Panzer Kitty. He loves to be handled, dude. Like, I've never seen a cat that is just so relaxed and being handled. Look at him. Say hi, Bubba. Say hi. What are you doing? Let's finish the show here. Here comes your buddies. They're all coming. Martis, get off my stuff there, buddy. Come on. Come on, go. Take Marmar. He's hiding. He thinks he's camouflaged. Him and the pig. The pig sits still, and they think that they're hiding, like nobody can see them. But You know,
You gotta go. Come on.
Stephen Gilson says, the truth, I would say it depends. The loyal people of Satanism probably not going to be rewarded for that. It depends. God sees things differently from us. He does. And Stephen, that's a funny thing to say because I don't think you're going to be rewarded for doing bad. That's for sure. Dark Side says, hey, Josh, do you think humans have lived for millions of years on Earth than what mainstream academia says? I do. I do. And I'll say this to mainstream academia, they're full of crap. I do. Thank you for that donation. We haven't got very many donations. I just noticed that. Ain't nobody liking us, man. Am I not doing my job? Do you hate me? Do you hate me? Is that what this is? Thank God somebody donated or I would have been made fun of. Only one time that I ever remember that happening, and that was a Saturday night. And I didn't even realize it till the whole show. And then at the end, my brother was mocking me for not said that I needed to go to the gym more and eat better, and then people would like me. You're one to talk. All right, smart guy. Yeah, whatever. And Barry says, we love you, old fart. Well, I'm 48. I guess I'm old to you, Barry. Barry, how old are you? That's probably what it is. We'll put that up there. Because I don't want my enemies, because they'll take anything and make fun of it and use it against me. So they laugh and think it's great when anything bad happens to me. But this isn't bad. Nothing bad's happening. They're just saying a bunch of crazy stuff. They talk about berry picking and then they go off on a tangent about me. It's like, pick your berries, dude, and just go on with your life. Why am I so important to you? And stop saying I doxed you because I didn't. And they're saying I put things on the web. No, I didn't. I don't have time for that crap. I have a life. That's right. Yeah, Jason Broussard, you're right. Absolutely. You made that profound point about the tax exempt weeks, if not more than a month ago. In addition, during the Demic churches put Caesar before the Lord, neglecting their so-called flocks. And they use Bible verses to render unto Caesar that which is Caesar, which is Jesus telling you to stay out of trouble by just giving them what they need. But that's not saying that you put that before God. Stephen Wade says you have a birth. What is it? Thank you for so much for wishing me a happy birthday. No problem, man. I always wish my people on Facebook a happy birthday. I want everybody to have a good birthday. I had so many that sucked. No, Marmar. He's trying to get in. As Mike Turner says, yeah, I saw that post on PRT News. I almost stole. They have an obsession with you. The conversation went from talking about berries to bringing up a negative. Yeah, it's weird, man, folks. And I'm only bringing this up because I want you to please pray for me. I have this feeling that's kind of come over me, like of an impending doom. I can't shake it. I don't know what it is, and I don't want to worry people or my wife or whatever. But if I didn't say that I was a little worried, I'd be lying. Because these people, they've banded together with Ike from Oklahoma, and they're just on this. You know, Ike is a big liar. We all know that, and he's turned it into a vendetta, and he's reawakened his ambitions to destroy me. He is going to court and dealing with all kinds of stuff, but it hasn't slowed him down and talking about me. He's going to take as much of me as he can before he goes down for whatever it is that he's going down for. And I just want these people to leave us alone and just pray for peace, that they will find another outlet, or that they will go their separate way and just leave me alone. They claim that there's like 20 people or something that he's taken away from the show. And I know some of them were donators, and some of them were people that I thought were, you know, good people. But because they don't like what he claims I'm saying, whatever. But he's twisting things, you know. And so Yeah, I love Cat. I feel like that too. Like something's happening here, and I don't know what their plan is or what. But I mean, I don't think it just involves them doxing me and saying a few bad things on a video. I think it's more than that. And we have made police reports, and we have turned things over to a lawyer. I'm getting frustrated though with the lawyer at this point, and I'm going to either change lawyers because I want things to be expedited, or I'm just going to hire another one and make him work in conjunction to get this done, because the first one has most of the information, and I will be pushing this as hard and far as I can, because I'm not going to let these people get away with this. This has to stop, and it cannot continue. Every time I move or take a breath or do anything, I'm under attack, and at some point there has to be an end. And it has to end. So other than that, though, let's move on. I just wanted you guys to know that, because I am feeling it's really heavy, and it weighs on me. And so I'm not going to waste much time on the show. I get bitched at every time I say anything on the show about that. Thank you for that donation, Spilling Tea. I appreciate it. Yep, Madeline, that sure does. And there's her comment right there. And those who get upset with us talking or saying anything about it, like, what do you expect me to do? I'm not a robot. I can't sit up here and not have any emotion and say anything, because I feel like, this is a dangerous situation. And I'm going to implore anyone, please don't go after these people in any way. Because first of all, I think they're dangerous. I'm going to tell you real straight up, don't mess with these people. Okay. They have targeted us in a way that is just beyond the pale, and they are obsessed. And just read their posts that they make every day and the messages and texts that they send people. And we've turned this over to the lawyers, and I don't know what this guy's waiting on or what he's doing. But me and Anthony are slammed busy. Today we had meetings. Tomorrow we have meetings. Anthony is actually an architect by trade. And so we don't have time to sit here and fiddle fart with these people. That's an old Southern saying. I just don't have time to fool with it. I don't. And so I turned it over to the police and the lawyers, but what are they doing? What are you doing? Because this should already be over with and done. Put a nail in it. But I guess it's just all about money. They just want more money. So I give them more money. Maybe they'll do what I got, what needs to be done to shut them down, to leave us alone. Go find another target. But their target is me because, well, I guess I'm the only one that's really doing any real work. I hate to sound arrogant and be, but sounds conceited. But if you go and you look at these other channels, they're fat and bloated with fake subs, fake views, fake stories. It's not real. So who you're going to go after? You're going to go after the guy that's doing the real stuff. So the frauds are going to go after you. And now they found their hammer, who, after the war didn't work, I guess he decided to go in another direction, because I do believe that he was involved in helping them during the war. He's involved in helping them now. So there's that. Just know that that's what's going on. So anyways, I got time for one more story before we get out of here. I got a guy who sent me a story, and it was about, speaking of cats, it was about a demonic black cat. And it's crazy because he witnessed something really, really intense. And this is a crazy story. And if you want to hear it, well, I'm going to put it behind a paywall, folks. I got to go. I'll see you. Good night. Joking, folks. I don't do that. I don't do that. But this story that one's a little long, though. Anyways, I can start that story, but I don't have a lot of time because Boomer's coming on. And this is not, I forgot this. I just didn't realize what time it was, because usually we have a 3-hour show where we can talk and do things. We only have 2 hours today. Oh. Okay, so anyway, what ended up happening with this guy? He had a cat, his cat, whatever, and an orange tabby, and he said he was a really sweet cat, and he had just a big fat cat, and he was a neutered male. He wasn't an aggressive cat at all, and he would let him out in the backyard, and he would play. And they had a couple dogs, and they all grew up together. So the dogs were always with the cat. But then one day, he had somebody that was house sitting, and she foolishly let the door open while she was talking to her boyfriend and babysitting at the same time. House sitting was the incorrect word. She was babysitting, and she let the little boy, who was a 10-year-old, go out with the cat. And he had the cat in his lap and he was playing with it. And this demonic, the only way I could describe this, thank you for that donation, Amy Creel. We appreciate that. The only way I could describe the stupid babysitter ability is that this black cat, about the size of a large dog, not a panther because it was fluffy. You've seen Maine Coon cats. They're very beautiful animals. I don't know anyone that personally has one in my personal life, but I know somebody on Facebook who does, and they're wonderful pets. It was like that, but demonic. It had red glowing eyes and huge teeth. And now this is the word of a 10-year-old who's now 15. So this happened in 2019. This thing jumped over the fence and was standing up on its hind legs for a few seconds before it launched itself into the backyard. When it did this, it ran toward this person's cat. The cat squirmed and got loose from the child. And what happened next was awful. This cat, this black demonic cat, launched itself on this poor unsuspecting animal and took it down. I'm not even going to get into the graphic details of what Dustin, that's the child that saw this, what he witnessed. And I spoke to his dad, and his dad said that this was the beginning of something that wouldn't end for months. But there again, there was an unsuspecting hero. But I wouldn't call it a hero because it just kind of moved in and did what it did. And so what ended up happening, this cat was killed. And this black cat began to terrorize this family. Now, they lived in the suburbs, and they were out on the far edge of town. And where they lived was in Houston, out on the edge of town, Houston in the Woodlands. It's its own city, but it's really a suburb of Houston. But they lived on the edge of the woods or whatever. Well, that's real thick wooded area. That's where my mother passed away in hospice in May, which is coming up. May, pray for me, folks. May is a hell month for me. I lost 5 people that I love very dearly in the month of May. So for Caesar, it was the Ides of March. For me, it's May. Very rough month for me. But so what ended up happening, this cat, like this demonic cat, the only way they could describe it, began to terrorize them. And at one point, they had 2 large dogs. One was a Rottweiler and one was a Shepherd mix. Both of them were no nonsense, and they got along very well with the cat. And there was such an odd trio, you know. And so they ended up getting a kitten to replace the cat. And the kitten loved the dogs, and the dogs were used to cats or whatever. But, yeah, I know, Scorpion, you lost somebody in May too. So anyways, what ended up happening, this dog, one of the dogs was in the backyard, and this thing came through their backyard again. This demonic looking cat that could stand on its back legs. And so the Rottweiler was in the backyard using the restroom. He had recently, the dad had started dating another woman because his wife and him had separated. And so he had Dustin every weekend he had the child, and then she had him during the week to go to school or something like that. And then there was one weekend out of the month where she had him, and then he had him on like off days or something. So Dustin was living there part-time, and it's often hard for a child to live in 2 places at once. I had to do it temporarily. It's not easy. And so he came over, and it was hard for him. And she was like, well, she used it against him. She's like, that creature that was lurking around your house that killed the cat right in front of him, it traumatized him. And so he doesn't want to be there. Well, thank you for that donation, Miguel. Of course he doesn't want to be there because, yeah, there was a demonic black cat or whatever that was doing whatever it did. But that's not the excuse that you use to scare the child. And in fact, according to this man, and, I could hear his son in the background talking, the mother actually encouraged his nightmares about this thing. Can you believe that? And it wasn't something that I just thought, just whatever. There was another person that was close to the family that emailed me that said, this is the truth. This is what happened. And that she used every weapon she could against this man to keep his child from him. But in the end, he did concede that at one point it got dangerous and he didn't want Dustin over at the house because this entity, animal, whatever it was not a good thing. And that he was afraid for him to go out in the backyard and play or to have his little neighborhood friends over that he had grown up with because this thing was lurking around. And there was only one other person in the neighborhood that had seen it. They saw it sitting in a ditch and it ran underneath their car and it lifted the back end of their car up and then it took off. It was on all fours. But he goes, sometimes I would see it lurking in the backyard. He goes, I heard this noise one time and the footsteps of something walking up on my deck. He's like, and I look out the bedroom window and I could see it walking like a man. And for whatever reason, smoke was coming off of its head. So I asked him, I said, was there humidity in the air? Was it cold? What was causing that? He goes, I don't know. It was summertime. I was like, okay, a little odd. Yeah, I'm going to say that's kind of odd. One of the things that really struck me, though, about this demonic entity, it wasn't overly large when it stood up on its hind legs, and it wasn't some big, massive creature. But it was Beans. Come here. Yeah, there you go. Get out of there. Sorry, you can't come in here. She ran into my bathroom. She just wants to play all the time. She's a big teddy bear dog. So what ended up happening is this entity lurked around their house for months. And then one day the dog, the Rottweiler, was out and it got into a fight with this cat-like thing, and it had it pinned down. And strangely enough, while this was going on, there was this big fight, this big struggle. The other dog jumped in and they started fighting, and they were able to kind of not defeat it, but back it off. And get this, a giant owl. And he says, what I'm going to tell you, Turner, he called me Turner. He said, what I'm going to tell you, Turner, is amazing. And you may think it's a lie. And I don't blame you if you do, but it's the absolute truth. Like me, he's half Hispanic. His dad is actually Hispanic and his mother is white. I told him that doesn't count because the mother is the one that teaches you about the culture. I'm joking, folks. I did say that. I was joking with him, though. I said, because you don't grow up eating the Mexican food or whatever. He said, well, I did from my grandmother on my dad's side. I said, yeah, but did she live with you? He said, no. I said, then I got you beat. You go up with a Mexican mom, she'll beat the Mexican into you and then beat it out of you. I'm joking, folks. But yeah. But anyways, what ended up happening, this giant owl, this white owl, swoops down and grabs that thing by the back of its head, lifting it off the ground by a few inches and then dropping it. And then it got down and put its arm, yes, there was an arm, not a leg, on the ground and kind of sat up like in a runner's stance. And then it just bolted up and over the fence, grabbed onto the fence, and then launched itself over and was gone into the woods. And he said that this owl was out there hooting for days and days and doesn't know why it inserted itself into this. He goes, but I was outside one day. He goes, I was smoking a cigarette and I chastised him. I told him it was a very bad habit. You should stop. But, it's up to him. But he said that he looked up and where that white owl was sitting was what looked like a lechuza, as we say in the Spanish culture, Hispanic culture. So what ended up happening? It looked up and he saw what looked like something that had like a human-like face that he didn't notice when he had looked out and heard the commotion and saw this owl swoop down and attack that other creature. So whenever it was sitting in the tree, he said it was large, big, like the size of maybe a full-sized adult female, but not, overly large, maybe, the size of a 5 foot tall female. He said it looked very feminine. And it was just staring at him with these eyes, watching him. And at that point, he never saw the black cat again. But I know other people who have. So strange. So what he did, he called a friend from the church, the clergy, and they came and they did basically a cleanse. They gave him holy water. They went around to all the different places, and he took my advice and took rock salt and take my advice, put it in the four corners of your property. Cast these demons out in the name of Jesus. And after that, he didn't see this harpy, this weird, whatever it was, this lechusa ever again. But it still makes me wonder why it chose to attack this cat thing and drive it away. And he told me that he had an aunt that had passed away who was steeped, a great aunt anyway, that was steeped in this brujeria. And that she always claimed to be a white witch, and the family rumor was that she could turn into a white owl. Now, the white owl is, let's go ahead, werewolf, do what you got to do. The white owl is known as being some sort of ill omen in some cultures, but in other cultures, it's known to be like a good thing. Either way, good or bad, it's what it is. And, he never did figure out why. That was, years ago, and now it's stopped. And since then, he's gotten custody of his son. So that's good. Who knows? Proof that these things don't all play on the other team? I don't know. Maybe the owl wanted the energy for itself. The owl was there before when the cat was outside and never tried to attack it. Was it watching over him? But if it was a good thing, then why did it terrify him so much? I mean, and when they did the cleanse, it went away. All interesting questions. All right, folks, thank you for listening to Paranormal Roundtable. Tomorrow night, the hour before going, Barton's show starts at 8. So from 7 to 8, we're going to have a pre-record, and it's going to be really good. It's the Lobozan, the Brazilian werewolf. It's a crazy story from some people. Basically, a friend of mine got me in touch with these people. He was the one that did the translations for me on the Brazilian Exorcist, and they've been telling me for a while that he knew somebody that had a wild werewolf story, and we got it. So it's ready to go. It'll be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being a part of what makes PRT great, which is you, the paratroopers. Sorry for bringing up that information, but it needs to be said because I'm asking you to please pray. Pray hard, pray in earnest. These people will go away, leave us alone, lose interest, and just go do something else and stop talking about us. Nobody's after him, or any of them. I just want them to leave me alone. I'd be glad for them to go away, but maybe what we need to do is just all pray together, and that will bind them up in a good way, not in a bad way, but just to go and find peace and be left, leave us alone. There's other shows out there, man. He goes and he's in Barton's deal. He can hang out at Barton's deal. But he's not allowed here, and I haven't told anyone else to kick him out or whatever. I haven't told Barton to kick him out. That's up to them. That's up to them. I am disappointed in the way that these people turned on us after seeing what we went through with these other people, and then joining forces with them. To just attack me. It's upset. I'm not talking about Barton or anybody else. I'm talking about these people, what they're doing. So it is disappointing, but I can't control the world. But I will pray for it, and I'll pray for them. And I know that one of them. And this is going to sound odd, and I'm not doing this for any kind of pat on the back, like I'm a good person, but I know that he had mentioned, somebody had said that he had pneumonia. Now, even though he said some mean, awful, nasty things, and even though he's been ugly and mean, the same thing happened with the other guy who had a heart problem. Pray for them. Pray for their health. I don't want anything bad to happen to these people. I don't wish anything physically harmful on them. I don't know how they feel about me physically, whatever. I know that there's a lot of venom and hate. When I've read the texts and messages that they've sent people, there is an absolute burning anger, hatred from them. I can't control that. Okay. But yeah, I agree. I agree, Madeline. It is despicable, but still, pray for their well-being. Pray for that God will calm their hearts and quell their anger, and that they can move on with their lives and we can be left alone. I'm being serious. This is not an act. This is not me trying to get people to think, oh, who's a good guy? I'm not that guy. You know me. People can think what they want. I know who I am and what I am. I've been a bad guy in my life, and I've done good. And I'm trying to do good and atone for my past. And so just pray that they can be okay, physically. I don't want anybody hurt. And I want them to just leave us alone. That's it. And just forget about us. I mean, like, just forget about us. Like, pretend like we never existed. Just go on. I mean, the guy's talking about buyer's remorse. I don't even know what you're talking about. If you're out there, just listen to what I'm telling you. I tried for peace. And Barton told you that. And then you came back with a list of demands. And now you're talking about how terrified you are. Dude, thank you for that, Madeline. See, Wolf always keeps it real. Thank you for saying that. I'm trying to be as nice as possible about this, folks. Just pray. Pray for these people. Pray for your enemies because Jesus told us to. But also pray for your enemies because Jesus wants you to not hate and not feel hatred for them. I don't feel hatred for them. I feel a burning anger towards them, and that's okay. It's okay to be angry to a degree. We're humans. It's justified. But taking revenge and all that, that's not our job, okay? Your job is to love and do what's right. Because if you hate and you die, you're going to not be in a good place. And I don't want that for anybody. I don't want to see. I was watching that movie, King Kong, Godzilla, whatever, and there was a scene there, and get this really touched my heart, where Kong gets attacked. I'm not going to tell you the whole story, but he gets attacked by these other gorillas. And he's fighting them, and he kicks one or punches him or something, and he goes to fall off the cliff, and the thing grabs a hold of the edge. And Kong reaches down to help him up. And immediately, Stefan was sitting to my right, and Nellie was sitting on the other side, and they both said, "That's you." And that touched my heart. Because as God is my witness, that is me. I don't care who you are and how bad you've done me. It would be extremely difficult if you killed or hurt someone in my family, but barring that, I'm not going to let you fall. I'll begrudgingly help you up off of that cliff. Now, after he helped him up off the cliff, the dude tries to kill him, and then he kicks him, like, go ahead and go then, dude. You're trying to kill me. So that's that. You have to defend yourself. But that's what I'll do. And those that know me, that know me are close to me, they know me best. They know that is who I am. I'm not the guy that's going to be like, hey, you're falling off the ledge. Let me go and kick you off of it to help you die. I'm not that person. All I want, truly all I want is just to be left alone. Mike Turner says, remember, it's not the people, it's the forces of darkness you're dealing with, especially when people are using witchcraft to turn people against you. Yeah. And we don't know, because witchcraft that was being done by these other guys, the man from the swamp, who knows, and I don't care what he says, it was what he was doing, could have infected some certain people that turned them, and it was shocking that they would go this far. But I honestly think a lot of it's just jealousy. The jealousy toward Anthony was palpable, and they were looking for a reason to turn on me. And, if they want to talk about truth coming out, a lot of truth could come out more than what's been dropped. I'm not trying to go there, because I'm not trying to dox people or mess with people, even though that's what they're claiming. I don't do that kind of stuff. We don't do that here. And I have not gone out of my way and done a lot of mean, bad things or whatever, like I could have. I could have said and done a lot of mean things, but I'm not. I've been very tame with this, for the fact that at one time we were friends. Now, those other people, I was never their friend. One of them, I thought was my friend. Yeah, but apparently that was wrong. But they were never like close to me, like in my inner circle. Like I said, other than one of them. But the rest were just kind of there, But these people, they were close to us. And then them going around saying that, oh, even Nellie said bad things. They keep saying that. They keep using that. They all use that like Nellie said this. She didn't. My wife's not going to turn on me. Okay. That's a bunch of bull crap. So that's it, guys. Just pray, please pray. Those that are here in the chat, and that it'll be over with and it'll be gone and we'll be done with it. We'll be back on Thursday with Blondes and Booze. I'll be there on Thursday. We got our guest who's going to be on, Chris Kramer. And then we got Friday. We got a guest, I believe. No, we got it's me, Monica, Abe, and Joe. And then Saturday will be the last Saturday that we do YouTube. We're going to be going to Rumble. And then after that, Sunday, and we retell people's encounters. And I hope you're happy. Thank you, and thank you for a good month, April, everybody. Now begins a hard month for me. Please pray for me for that, because I have to go through the emotional distress of 5 people that I cared about dying in this month. So, yeah, I'll see you guys. Good night. Oh, thank you to everyone who donated.